For 9 straight weeks now, Hong Kong has been on the boil, simmering with tensions as thousands of anti-government protesters have taken to the streets. Protesters set off on a protest march today as well. The epicenter of the tensions this time around was the Mong Kok district. Mong Kok is a mostly working-class neighborhood which was at the center of violent clashes during the pro-democracy protests in 2014 as well. These are the live images that we're getting to you from the streets of Hong Kong. The initial trigger for the protests was a controversial extradition bill. The bill would have allowed suspects to be sent to mainland China for trial. As per the Hong Kong authorities, that bill stands suspended for now. Even the authorities have gone to the extent of saying that the bill is quote-unquote dead. But the protesters remain unconvinced. They want the bill to be withdrawn completely. And the protest movement now has transformed into a broader revolt against China's hold over Hong Kong. The protesters have also slammed what they call police brutality against the protesters and demanded the resignation of the Hong Kong Chief Executive, Carrie Lam. And Wion's correspondent Erin Hell has been tracking the very latest from Hong Kong, is now joining us live on the broadcast. Erin, it's clear now it's a broader protest against Beijing. The police continues to exert force and the protesters remain unrelenting. What immediate steps do the protesters you've been speaking to want the government to take now?
The protesters continue to make the same demands of the government that they have from the very beginning, which is that they want to see the bill permanently withdrawn, and they also want to see Carrie Lam step down. They also continue to ask for an independent inquiry into police violence, given the high level of violence seen by riot police. They used tear gas, they fired rubber bullets on them, they've also hit them with batons. The government has really failed to respond to any of their demands. They have suspended the bill, but they have failed to withdraw it completely, which has led to a lot of mistrust for protesters. They say that they're afraid that Carrie Lam will just push the bill through the legislature once protests die down. Carrie Lam has apologized twice to 3 times, but her apology has really been badly received by the public, and she's almost entirely disappeared from public view in recent weeks.
Right. So, Erin, in what ways is the protest movement symptomatic of the growing mistrust between the civilians and the government authorities?
The protest has really created a massive rift between the Hong Kong populace and the government. A recent poll shows that 60% of people mistrust the government. Carrie Lam only has a 30% approval rating, the lowest for any chief executive in Hong Kong. However, if you talk to protesters, as I did today, one of them told me that this crisis is 20 years in the making, because they say that the government is not representative of the Hong Kong people. It's only semi-democratic, and Hong Kongers are not allowed to choose their own leader. That leader is chosen by a special election council of 1,200 people, but primarily they're rubber stamped by Beijing. So what we're really seeing is an extension of 2014's umbrella movement, which asked for greater democracy in Hong Kong and for direct election of the leader. The problem right now is that without democratic elections, I think a lot of Hong Kongers feel that there's no relief and there's no way for them to really have their voice felt in the government, and the government continues to do what it wants and also continues to do the will of Beijing.
Right. So the immediate question that then arises is, has any concrete attempt been made by the government authorities to try and reach out to the protesters, or have things, according to you, moved past the point of communication between the two sides?
The government has made a very tepid attempts to reach out to protesters, but protesters remain very clear that they have the 5 demands they want met, which include the permanent withdrawal of the bill, the police inquiry into the use of force, and also for Carrie Lam to step down.
Does this protest remain largely leaderless, or are there a group of people guiding them? And what do you make of the several reports that have been coming in indicating that China could be using various means to try and give these protests a violent shade?
The protests do remain largely leaderless. They're organized primarily on social media, on a forum, EHKG, as well as on Telegram and WhatsApp. Protesters organize themselves. There is no leader like Joshua Wong and Nathan Law and Benny Tai, who we saw last time during the Umbrella Movement protests. This is one of the reasons why the protests show no sign of ending, because police really don't have one central person to arrest, and there is no one calling the shots. It's really an expression of discontent of thousands of people.
Take care.
And as I'm speaking, police appear to be firing tear gas on protesters, showing that protests are likely to continue against police violence.
Right, so tear gas shells and several forms of force that have been resorted to by the police personnel, as Heron is telling us. Erin Hale, our correspondent, getting us the very latest from Hong Kong. Thanks very much for all of those updates.